Let's talk about the Kangaroos. It was a big week last week. They had a win. Obviously, David Noble left. They're now looking for a coach, and that's already getting momentum. Let's hear from Ross Lyon on the weekend and then Adam Simpson, the West Coast coach, last week.
It's gratifying to be mentioned in dispatches. Like, as a media commentator, for me to do my job properly, I'm not sitting here being able to advocate for a job, so I'm not doing that. I haven't got a definitive answer whether I'm interested. So you always take a call and you always respect people, and sometimes you might be able to help what they're looking for if you're not the right person.
Yeah, fully invested in what we're doing. I haven't spoken to North at all for a long time. You know, there'll be a time when I get tapped on the shoulder, but at the moment I'm contracted and I'm up for the fight. So it's going to be a long road for us, and it'd be silly to look sideways at the moment.
You feel like he wasn't quite definitive there, Adam Simpson, but nearly. And Ross Lyon, just listening to that, it wasn't a no, was it? And it feels like it's history repeating a little bit with the Carlton situation last year. Incredibly difficult spot for him to be in with the media roles that he plays here on Wednesday
it's not,
at Triple M. Well, it is.
It's not.
So what would your advice be to him? Because last year he was really open with his commentary around the Carlton job and seemingly felt like he had it and then it went awry. So what would your advice be?
Well, I thought he handled it poorly last year. As I've said before, he got drawn in while David Teague was still the coach. This is a little bit different.
Can't sit here and say nothing.
He can, though. Like, we won't like it, but he can. He can just say, based upon what happened last year and my learnings, I'm no longer commenting on my own availability, good, bad or indifferent in a coaching job. And he can ask me 100 different ways, I'm not going to answer it. And we won't like it, his employer won't like it, but that's how you should be handling it.
I think with Ross and Clarko, I don't think you can be out for longer than a couple of years. So I think for both of them, it's about now, I think. You don't want to be
probably
out
now or never for Ross?
It's now or never, I'd say so. You're either put your hand up now and take a job or take the job you can and fight for it. And it's the same for Clarkson, I think, in my opinion, as good as he's been. And here's Sonia Hood talking about Alastair Clarkson with our man Sam McClure over the weekend.
James Henderson is the representative for Alastair Clarkson. Has the club spoken with him?
I have, yep.
Reaching out to see where Clarko was at or what he was thinking? How did that conversation go?
I'm having a lot of conversations at the moment just to understand the environment that I'm sitting in.
So reading between the lines, it's the senior coaches who have coached in the past, which is the early market. Who's the fit?
Oh, who's the fit? To me, like I know we're a bit of a pack mentality or follow the leader mentality, but I think the model at Collingwood, where you can get 3 for 1, in that was Craig McRae, and he says, I want to bring Justin Lepich, and then Brendan Bolton comes too. I really like that model. So to me, this is just my opinion, but when you've got Adam Uze, Adam Kingsley, but you could bring with them a Mark Williams or a Don Pike. So you rather pay... You
go first-time coach?
I would, rather than pay somebody $1 million plus, I'd try and bring in a couple of coaches for what North Melbourne needs. That's my opinion.
I think, Hutchie, when the AFL came out through Gillan McLachlan and definitively said they will not be helping teams pay coaches or a senior coach outside the salary cap. That was a big blow to someone like an Alastair Clarkson.
So
he should be rewarded.
I say differently. I think the AFL would do everything they could to help North get a coach of there.
But the only thing that they could do to help would be pay him outside the cap, and they've already said on the record they won't do that.
Is the market calling on him, Hutchie? You've been quite strong on this, whereas others said he's got many options. Is he running out of options?
It wasn't a big dance floor for him, and it's
getting
small
smaller.
now, but the North Melbourne job would be his if he wants it. And he might just take it.
If you were North Melbourne, I mean, Ben Mafia has already said they're paying 100% of the soft cap. Would you sacrifice 3 other jobs to get Clarko in and pay him what he's worth?
I think you'd get support in one way, shape or form, undisclosed or otherwise, from the AFL to make that happen.
Hang on, you're saying that the AFL is going to go directly against what they've told the public on the record?
I think there'd be a level of support for that role. I do. It's interesting, isn't it? The President guaranteed the CEO's job, by the way, too.
Ben, do you expect to be the CEO next year?
I think you have to ask the President that. That's not my decision.
Sonia?
Yep.
Guarantee that?
Yep.
Guaranteed. It was interesting.
They can't say anything different, can they?
No, well, they can easily go back on that, but wait, do you think they will?
No, I don't know. I've got no reason to think that Ben Mafia is not going to be there. But at the end of the day, if he's not, she can just say things change.
It was overall pretty well handled. The big flaw in the presentation was the mixed messages on players, wasn't it?
Well,
like the state of the list was poorly handled publicly. You can't, in one hand, say we've got a fantastic list, and
really
on the other hand, say we're desperate for a priority pick.
I was going to get to that because on Tuesday, the captain, Jack Ziebell, said that every player under David Noble has improved. I asked him this morning whether he stood by those comments.
Guys who you don't think have developed and improved, I guarantee you they've developed in certain ways that will make them a better player. 100%. I'll stand by that. So, specific individuals that you might throw out, and you've probably done your research and got some numbers there to back that up, you might think that they haven't improved. I'm telling you that they, as a person, as their development comes as a player, the last 18 months, they definitely would have improved and will hold them in good stead for their career.
Yeah, hard to believe that to be the case. And then the president tweeted after that win against Richmond, our list not bad. Well, if your list is that good and every player has improved, then there's no priority pick. So you can't be saying that, to Hutchie's point, and then go and ask for a priority pick. Their list is awful. And we've been really strong on their recruiting this year. It's an awful list. There's no denying the errors that they have made. It's an awful, awful list. And who are their under 23s that are going to be absolute guns of the competition, comparing that to others? Like, there's not many other than Horn Francis. There's not 23. They're not 23. Horn Francis is the only one of that crop. So their recruiting's been really bad, and that's the reason 3 of their recruiters walked out, or one of the reasons.
And Davies Juniac, obviously,
not 23 though, is he?
He's under 23. Okay. He'd have to be. I just want to also talk about. I'll ask you a question, Sam. Did David Noble lose his players? Because here's Jai Simpkin and also Nick Larkey over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we owe this to Nobes. You know, he's been there for the last couple of years. He worked his worked his backside off to get this group better and send us on our way. So this is for you, Nobes. You deserve it, mate.
It's probably a mix of both, and whatever the coach is, say it is a really hard standards driver, the assistants sort of can balance that. And if the coach is a really inspirational and motivated, but the tactical side's not there, then the assistant coaches can marry that up. So it's more like the team, I think, needs to be really right.
So Nick said yesterday that players had no issue with that spray earlier in the year. He was the one that come and said to us, I just went a bit hard. He said it come from no players. We heard Jai Simpkin speak there. What was the issue in the end then? So was his game plan too much for what this group was? I know he didn't win enough games, but who did he lose there?
Well, the day that David Noble was sacked, and despite what the president said, he was sacked, there was a lot of feeling coming out of Arden Street that he'd completely lost the players and that there were too many players that didn't want him to be the coach. So I took it upon myself to call 3 different players that day, and all 3 of those players said that they loved him. Now, they might just be saying that to me and saying something else behind closed doors, but there were definitely sections that really wanted the whole David Noble situation to work. So I don't think it was a player revolt that necessarily led to his demise. I think, honestly, just the weight of losses was too much in the end.
You say it's an awful list. I
disagree with that, by the way.
I don't think it's a great list, so to be fair, but I wonder how it compares against the Giants. Roll, Lordo.
Yeah, and I'm thinking more and more about that too, Hutchie. I think their depth is really poor, the GWS Giants, and we get probably sucked in or to the top-end talent of what they've got. But this top-end talent is paid way too much for the way they're performing. Toby Green aside, he's on, we're the estimated money, and they have to
There's at least 3 bad decisions there.
At least with North Melbourne, they might have a war chest in time to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah, that's 30% of their cap there.
Yeah, so I just think they're now a bottom 4 club, the GWS Giants, and they need to really be clear as a board and an administration, where are we? Are we a bottom 4 team, or do they think we can bounce back up and be around the top 8? I think they are a bottom 6 club with what they've got, and then they've got players that on those salaries. They're in a real hole as a footy club.
And they can't rebuild in that market, can they? They need to be relevant.
Absolutely, they do.
That's a real challenge.
Hutchie, you would know, they're struggling to get people to games at Giants.
I reckon they're in a water trouble.
The interim coach was interesting after the game. He was really strong on how he's going to finish the season and what he expects.
I won't be letting up in my approach, and I won't be letting up in my approach to train them hard. So when a loss happens like this and last week, there's always consequences, and that can be from a selection point of view, but I'll be up in the ante in the way we train and approach the next few weeks.
And I absolutely love it. Like, if you're a coach...
It's old school.
But the number one thing you've got to have as a coach is a coaching philosophy, and you've got to stick to that. It doesn't matter what your philosophy is, you've got to have one, and you've got to sell it to your players. Now, that was a long media conference.
Backfire on him,
maybe, but, he's got to at least put the flag in the ground and say, this is the way I'm going to coach you, and I'm not going to waste the rest of the season. That was a long media conference that went for 14 minutes. That was a part of it. You can tell he's incredibly frustrated by the effort and the lack of players playing to their potential.
Physicality as well.
And he's going to drive that, and I think that's terrific, and so he should.
Did you take that, Kane, to mean that Leon Cameron didn't drive those standards hard enough when he was coach?
No, I took that more to mean that they're not living up to their potential and that maybe have taken some liberties during the week, and that's a result of the performance that they're getting, and he's not going to accept it.
What I admire about him is he's not caring. He's not caring. He could easily go in there and just try and massage the egos of players and try and win himself the job. He doesn't care about that. He's just frustrated that I don't think players work hard enough. They were outworked by the Brisbane Lions. And in the last 5 rounds, whether he gets the position or not, he's going to work these guys harder than they've ever worked before to try and see if it can come out on weekend.
It's hard to see him winning the job, though.
Oh, it's got to be hard. Yeah. He needs big wins, yeah.